Okay.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Wednesday and the Sisters interview. Tonight, we have Alianora Graymore, Mistress Alianora Graymore, a member of the Order of the Pelican and lifetime, all her life, member of the SCA.
Yeah.
She's a lifer.
And did I say you're Seneschal of Antir right now as well?
Yeah.
Okay. So welcome.
Thank you.
We
Happy to be
usually
here.
thank you so much for subbing in for our person that had to cancel. We really, really appreciate the last minuteness of all of this.
And so everyone knows she has been on our list from the very beginning. I am very excited to talk to Alianora because I find her fascinating and she's just such a smart woman.
Aw, shucks. Now I'm gonna blush and everything.
Yeah, I'm gonna make you blush.
And I fell in love watching you deal with the angriest stoner ever at Sporting Kings.
Oh my god. That guy.
That was pretty epic.
He was the angriest stoner ever.
Right? I don't understand how you can be that irate.
No, you're usually happy or paranoid.
Yeah, she just thrown some Pringles at him.
Yeah.
Like, led them to his car.
Anyway.
So we're off to a good start. Usually we have people start us off with their SCA origin story.
Oh, sure. Although, like, I don't know. I came into the world. So my SCA origin story is one that I don't have a lot of recollection of. My parents were in the SCA long before I was born. They had actually already been like a territorial prince and princess and before I was born. So just had been around for a while. And I was born in 1984 in the barony of Batavia in the kingdom of Calontir. And we lived there for about 5 years. So I was about 5 years old when we moved to Antir. And during that time, my parents reigned as king and queen in Calontir. So I got to be the first princess, or the first princess royale of Calontir.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. I remember nothing of it because I was about 18 months old, but I'm told I was very cute. Let's see here. And
we
then
might have some pictures.
At the time that we moved to Antir, my dad was on his second time on the board of directors. So especially when I was like a really little child, when we first moved here, my dad wasn't going to a ton of events in Antir. So I mostly went with my mom and my sister to lots of events. So.
I forgot your dad was on the bod twice.
Yeah. I think that it might have led to a different interpretation of his enjoyment of the SCA following his second time on the board. It's a grueling job for a lot of people. I don't pretend to have anything but admiration for people who are willing to take on that job. It's a lot.
I'm shocked by that. Not.
Right? He's such a jovial person.
Or he used to be before that.
Yeah.
So what are your earliest memories about the SCA?
Oh, good question. I have recollections of going to event. I don't have any actual recollections of events prior to living in Antir at all, but like I have memories of Brendan and Ariana's reign. I have memories of going to events and having a really good time. Everything feels very magical when you're a child, right? Like you're able to completely suspend reality and go to events and really feel like you're living there, and you have your pavilion and you have all your stuff and you're doing all this fun, amazing stuff. And I had a lot of opportunities to do some pretty cool stuff too. Like I remember when I was probably about 8 or 9 years old. And I want to say it was during Duke Sven and Duchess Digny's second reign. I think it was during their stepping down ceremony. They did a 3 sages kind of vignette that they were doing. And I got to be like the youthful one. And I got lines and like royal court, and it was very fun. What else? Oh, during Skepti and Asa's, I think their second reign, Skepti let me like be a court herald at like 11 years old for a little while. That was fun. It was around 12 that 30 year happened in Antir, and I think my mom was actually Kingdom Seneschal at the time. So when we went to 30th year, we were in the Royal Encampment, and that felt very fancy. They have their own Biffy in the encampment.
Wow.
I'm sorry, what? What riz?
That is fancy.
It is. And it was Thorne and Sinead were on the throne, and Sinead let me go shopping with her because she had to go buy all the other queen's presents at merchants. So I got to hold the basket. And I remember she asked me about my opinion about a lot of things. Like, do you think the Queen of Atlantia would like this trim or this trim? And I'm like, very judiciously, right? Because I'm being entrusted with advice, you know? So I'm like, I think that one. And she'd nod gravely, like, yes, I think that's right. Super fun.
That is super fun.
Yeah. But yeah, I feel like it's also because of the amount of time and you're still kind of forming memories and stuff when you're a small child. Like, there's a lot of amalgamation of events where I'm not really sure that if that event was the same one or a completely different event where something happened. But
I have that same problem, and I don't have a child youth to
Blame it on.
blame it on. So,
yeah.
I was gonna say the same thing. Can you tell us who your parents are, because people are asking?
Oh, sure. My father is Earl Sir Edward Seary of Graymore. He is a pelican and a knight, and has been on the board twice. And my mother is Countess Elizabeth de Rossignol. She is a laurel and a pelican and a lion of Antier, and is my great something grand predecessor as King of Seneschal of Antier, and formerly Black Lion. And then she also did a stint. She's not been on the board, but she was a Laurel Queen of Arms.
Yeah,
for a period. I grew up having tons of filing cabinets in our garage all the time. All the time.
so being Seneschal was sort of a natural progression for you.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I joke with my sister that it's hereditary, so she should watch out. I'm glad you guys thought that was funny. She didn't. She was like,
does she still play in the SCA too?
not really. She comes to some events sometimes, but she's found a lot of other non-SCA things that she's super passionate about that she's exploring in the last couple of years. And I expect that she'll probably continue to come to events sometimes, but it's just not really something that is a huge passion for her right now.
Right.
So,
Makes sense.
Totally understandable.
yeah, which is funny at like Thanksgiving, right? Because like mom, dad, and I are all talking about SCA stuff, and Stephanie's like, oh my God. I can't even with this. Pass the potatoes.
Well, now everybody be looking at the grandchild, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And she's so cute. Oh my God. I did not know that I could love someone so much as I love my niece. She is the cutest baby in the whole world. And I love her so much.
It's
I'm
amazing.
constantly calling my sister and asking about the baby. And she's like, also, I'm fine. Thanks for asking. But I've been very excited to like make little baby garb. But now that we're not having events, I was like, oh, I don't want to make baby garb because what if she outgrows it by the time she can wear it? So
That's
hashtag
sad.
struggles, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
The cool thing about making garb for kids is while they grow out of it really quickly, it goes into this cycle in the SCA and people pass it to other people. And like 17 years later, you're looking at something that your child wore on another child and you're like, oh my God, I made that. It's
Yeah.
super cool. So it's totally worth it.
You're making that swirly motion, and I'm thinking of like a garb tornado, right? Like,
What the child does in it, it collects all the debris, you know.
It comes out fabulously dressed.
Yeah.
exactly.
I'd like one of those for adults.
Yeah, like an anime character only for like garb.
Yeah, that would be great.
Are you going to show the cute picture?
Sure, I will pull the
Oh. Oh my gosh, I'm nervous.
It's not going to be on the cute picture, but this is you and mom.
Oh yeah, that was when my mom was Baroness of Madrona.
Because your parents were the Baron and Baroness of Madrona too.
Yeah. They actually did that when I was living out of Kingdom. I moved back and my mom was like, oh, by the way, your dad and I are Baron and Baroness of Madrona. I'm like, oh, cool.
And there's the little family shot.
Yeah, that was the day that I was offered Pelican.
There
Oh,
we go.
Oh, and
that's the picture.
that's actually another example of the garb. My mom made that garb for me, and I think it's on its like 20-something child at this point. I'm actually kind of shocked that it survives. Like that is old, that little outfit.
It's so cute.
Cheeks for days.
Right?
Okay, so do you want to keep looking at pictures, or should we stop and come back to these?
Oh, I mean, it's up to you guys. That's a picture of, we were at the Dragon's Lair Yule, and they invited at that time, what was called the Camp Fromage Party Band, which is now just called Fromage Fete, to come and play music for the dancing. And we were very excited. I don't know if you guys know, we're big in Dragon's Lair.
You're big in Ontier.
Well, I got the opportunity to play the tambourine, and since I've been the self-described principal tambourinist of the Camp Fromage Party Band, and so we went to Dragon's Lair, we played all the music, and they hooked us up. They gave us like a musician's table and like fed us, and it was really a lot of fun. Dragon's Lair puts on a pretty good spread. But yeah, and my husband's sitting next to me. He looks very happy.
Did you meet him in the SCA?
I did, actually. He started playing in Madrona. So he actually came from Amtgard. And when he was in college at the University of Washington, was really into Amtgard. And then he knows Sir Athos from Amtgard. And Athos was like, you should come to an SCA event. And this was right around the time Pembroke and Emelina were Baron and Baroness of Madrona. And that's how Cesare and I met. And then, but we didn't start dating until after we went to Gulf Wars together about 5 years ago.
Oh.
Yeah. At a Kingdom events, y'all.
Yeah.
A bonding experience.
That sounds like a story maybe we'll have to talk about later.
Yeah, that's what, Sisters Interview After Dark?
Oh.
These are really cute. So Mistress Morgan Donner and Mistress Temeckin did this amazing project where they built out a like a 52 card playing deck and included lots of their friends in the images. So I want to say that Morgan Donner did the drawing, and then Mistress Temeckin did all of the cutting of all the little blocks. And then she also did all the printing. And then Morgan went back in and painted and colored them all in. And then one year, and I want to say it was like in a March or something, so it was after Christmas time, we all got together for like, I think it was like an arts night at Master Sean's house, and they just started handing people their cards. And it was the squeamiest moment of all time, because this was a secret project that no one knew was happening until we got our cards. So this is me on the left with my tambourine, and that's my sister in the middle. It's got her little dog, and she's doing weaving. My sister's actually a museum curator. She works for the Eastside Heritage Center. And she went to college at the University of at the University of Glasgow in Scotland, and has a background in textiles and textile restoration and very cool stuff. And so I thought it was very fun that even though they were doing it in a later period style, they did this loom setup for her. And then the card on the far right is my mom and her little dog, Gracie.
Very cool.
It was very cute. It was like the Ladies More in card form. Oh my gosh, that picture. I think my mom was probably like, oh my God. That's my mom. And I want to say that was her, gosh, stepping down as princess picture when she was, my parents were the last prince and princess of Callantyre and the fourth king and queen. So their reigns were a couple years apart from each other. But it's really interesting hearing like my mom's perspective on the difference between being the last princess and the fourth queen, and that like how much changes between when you're a principality and when you're a kingdom. But yeah, so I don't know for sure, but I think she might have been pregnant with me in this picture, like in the early stages.
Well, she looks amazing. I wish we had this when we did her interview, because it would have been really good.
I am totally digging her hair.
Yeah. It's the best.
Mm-hmm.
I love your mom. She's great.
I like her too. She's all right in my book.
Family shot.
Yeah, that was September Crown a couple years ago. That was when I was placed on vigil for Pelican. I was kind of funny because my dad came out to the event. He was so excited.
Aww.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's, I believe that picture is Pembroke and Emelina's investiture as Baron and Baroness. They took over right after my parents. So I was there to help with my parents' step down. And then also I was on Pembroke and Emelina's retinue and helping them step up. And it was a really fun event. It was at the Emprise of the Black Lion at the old site. I just love that site so much.
Me too.
And then is this Saruko speaking for your pelican?
No, actually, I think that this is Saruko speaking for Baroness Alessandra, who is being elevated. And this was at July coronation, gosh, a little over a year ago, because this was Kjartan and Shea's second reign at their coronation where they were stepping down. So this would have been the coronation of Morgan and Livia. Yeah, that was also a really fun event. I like that one a lot. Oh, this is me and Alicia Dubois being snarky in court. A favorite pastime.
So have you always done 14th century?
I think I've been doing 14th century since I was about 20 or so quite a while. Before then, it was mostly tea tunics, right? Like either hand-me-down tea tunics from my parents, or actually I am a little embarrassed to admit how many hand-me-down clothes from my mom I still have in my closet, which is funny because my mom and I have very different body types, so I don't know why I keep them because they don't work for me. But yeah, for a long time, I just kind of wore whatever my mom made for me in the way that kids do. It wasn't until I got my own sewing machine that I started talking to Mistress Anissa, because I love the 14th century stuff that she does. And I think I went to her being like, I really want to wear the things that you wear because they're really pretty. And she was doing a series of classes at that time on how to do a fitted kirtle. And it was super fun. I got really into it. And ever since then, I'm like, oh yes, fitted kirtles. Also, how much like pewter bits can I sew onto a particular outfit?
Yeah, she's such an amazing seamstress, and the way that she fits a body is just
yeah, it was amazing. It was super fun. She was so generous with like her time, especially as a new person to sewing, or I'm like, I don't know how you pin things. Like, you have to pin them. Can you just probably just run it through the machine? You don't have to pin anything. Like,
it'll be fine.
It'll be fine. It's not fine, by the way. It's not. You should pin things. But yeah, and this was a picture. I think this was at September Crown, actually, the last September Crown that we were able to have. And this was super fun because we were all hanging out. It was during court, more like just chit-chatting, hopefully quietly so as not to disturb others during court. And Charles was there, and he had brought out one of his giant plates of fur and just laid it on the ground for us to sit upon. And I felt so guilty. I'm like, I'm gonna ruin your fur.
It's like, no, this is what it's for.
Yeah, sit upon it. Sit upon my my fuzzy furs. All right. Oh, this was fun. This was at Kingdom Arts and Sciences in this last early March. And this was me and Magistrate Julia Sempronia. And I want to say we were probably talking Seneschal stuff. She has been just an amazing person. She's an amazing person across the board, right? Like I cannot speak more highly of Julia. She's amazing. But she's also been a wealth of advice and knowledge. I frequently go to her whenever I have questions about like, hey, I have this really difficult issue and I'm not really sure how to approach it. And she just has the most calm and measured approach to things. And I feel like when I walk away from a conversation with Julia, very centered. Where I'm like, you're so wise. I just want to sit at your feet and learn.
It's all zen now.
Yeah, I feel very calm and ready to approach the issues. I'm actually wearing that dress right now.
Awesome. And we already looked at this one.
This photo was done at May Crown. And this one is the elevation of Mistress Alicia of Glamere. I want to say she was still Baroness of Glamere at that time, but she was being elevated to the Pelican. It was awesome. That was the event where it started a torrential downpour at like May Crown. I think it was out in Hood River, and we all had to scurry inside.
See, so this is what happens when I pull pictures without my glasses on, because I thought I was getting pictures of you getting pelicans. I did not.
No, I want to say, I don't know that there are a ton of pictures of my pelican ceremony. It was one of the, because I want to say I was number 5 of 6 peerages that were made at that 12th night.
Oh my
and you know how it is at 12th night, after like the 6th or 7th hour of court, you're like, there's just not a lot of people there anymore.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
But your people always show up and support you.
Yeah. It was also the day I got made a pelican was the same day I became Kingdom Seneschal. So it was all kind of a blur that day anyway.
That's a lot all at once.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. It really was. It was a lot at once.
And how do you wrap your brain around becoming a peer for the first time and all of that, all of what that can entail, and also being the seneschal, which is a huge responsibility?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. It's funny because I've not been a pelican while not being Kingdom Seneschal, so I don't really have a way of separating those two in my mind yet. Like I feel like I got a lot of advice before my elevation of like, your words are going to have a lot more weight now. I'm like, okay, that's fair. But I don't know if my words are having weight right now because I'm a peer or because like I'm the seneschal. When I say things, people are like, oh man, she means business. I don't know. Maybe I should have tried that out with the angry stoner. But like, don't you know I'm a peer? Don't you know?
I'm a pelican.
No,
Hello.
yeah, I don't think he would have been impressed either way.
No.
He was not having it with me.
No, he was engulfed in his rage.
But yeah, so I'm excited to get the opportunity to be a pelican while not being Kingdom Seneschal, because then I feel like we'll have a good answer to that question.
Yeah. Well, and I think on the one hand, you've got your daily job as seneschal, like proving, yes, I'm a pelican. I'm a pelican. Look at all this, and I'm doing this in plague year, and
yeah,
everything.
truthfully, I don't think I'm a very good pelican. Truthfully, like in that, it kind of feels like it has to kind of take a second seat to the seneschal job. So every once in a while, there will be like a regional council meeting, and I'm like, I've been on phone calls all week, and I just need a night where I'm not. So I might just not show up. So I'm hopeful that once I'm not seneschal anymore, I'll have a lot more enthusiasm to go do the thing.
Yeah, to do the job.
I mean, you obviously had great examples in your mom and dad, but how did you become interested in service?
That's a really good question. I feel like as a child, oh man, one of my favorite soapboxes that my dad has is that the SCA is not a spectator organization. It's a participatory organization. And so there was always kind of an expectation when we'd go to an event, like, Kirsten, what are you going to do to help with the event this weekend? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. I guess like I'll run list cards, or I'll help with water bearing, or I'll help at gate or something. But I think that it was at least early on, it was kind of an expectation. If we're going to a feast, then maybe you should go volunteer to help refill water carafes, or maybe you should help, string beads, or, whatever. So I feel like I was always really busy at events. And I think that may actually have corresponded to having a little bit more of an investment in the SCA, because you spent all this time helping make things happen. And I think that gives you a sense of ownership over the process. So
it also makes it feel weird when you're not doing something to help.
Yeah, I definitely feel guilty if I go to an event and I'm not doing something. I'm like, oh, my dad would be so disappointed in me right now. I'm not participating. But yeah, so I feel like I was doing some stuff, not really. I wouldn't say it was anything of substantial value to the event. I think it was a small help, and I think people were appreciative of, the help that I provided. But it wasn't until I was about 16 or so that I had more of an interest in like running my own event. And so I was very grateful, because at the time Wildwood had separated to be a canton of Madrona, and we're hosting their own events. But it was a very small group of people. It wasn't a huge barony like it is now. And there were a couple of people there that were really supportive of the idea that I could run an event, but I wasn't 18, so I couldn't technically be the event steward. And so there was a very wonderful lady in Wildwood. Her name was Letitia. She's actually a Laurel now, and she lives in Aytonville. But at that time, she was like, you know what? I'll put my name as being the event steward. I'll be the official, like, grown up in charge, but I'll let you kind of plan what's going to happen at this event and let you kind of take charge and make it happen. And it wasn't a big event. I think we called it like, a day at the park or something. It was really small. And the idea was that we had games, like we did things like turnip ball and, tag and whatever. And it was a good time. Cabbage ball? Maybe it was I think it was toss the turnip and cabbage ball were the activities du jour. And it was a lot of fun. And I remember at the time feeling like, this is great. I have a budget. Like the SCA is going to like let me throw a party for my friends and like they'll pay for it. This is fantastic. And so I got really interested in holding events at that time. So it was really all about what fun event can we come up with and have a good time doing it. And that, I think that went on for years, where I was very happy just doing small events. I actually went from doing events no larger than probably about 100 people to being like, I'm going to put in a 12th night bid on that event. And I did that. That was in, oh my gosh, I want to say it was like 2012. So it's been quite a long time. And that was when we went back to the SeaTac DoubleTree. And that was fun. And we've been going back a couple years ever since because they love us there.
Yeah.
And actually, since then, I haven't done any really big events. I've been really interested in helping grow the Emprise of the Black Lion. I've autocrated that event a couple of times. And when Master Charles and Dame Christiana were really excited about getting Athenaeum off the ground, I was like, I will help run your event. I don't want to be in charge of like getting artsy types together, but if you need infrastructure, I'll find a site and I'll make it happen. And they were like, yes, absolutely. So that was a really fun partnership. And I'm actually working with Master Charles this year too. I'm putting in a bid to host Athenaeum for 2021. Hopefully we can do it in person, but
Cool.
real exciting. And I won't be Seneschal at the time, so.
When do you step down?
This coming 12th night. So I want to say it's the second weekend in January. I have the exact date written around. You'd think I'd have it memorized, the exact date that I step down. I'm really excited because Mistress Atia is going to be the next Kingdom Seneschal, and it's been a really wonderful experience being able to pass off more stuff to her and getting her up to speed on all the things. I don't think I had truly realized prior to taking on the job of Kingdom Seneschal how many moving pieces there are and the expectation that you have your finger on the pulse of a lot of different stuff. So bringing someone into all that is its own kind of awkward process that I've never had to do before. Like, here, let me just download knowledge into you of where all these things are happening right now, especially at a time when we are in a big state of flux. As hard as it was to work with the Crown to cancel events, Atia is going to have a big job of trying to figure out like the best way to reopen events and start having them again. And so she's been really involved in the conversations around what could potentially a main crown look like and how can we make this happen? What happens if we can't make it happen? So I think that I'm very grateful that she's on board and 100% invested, and that I can step down at 12th night feeling like I did the job and I've handed it off and I can go do a different adventure.
It's in safe hands and I'm out.
Nah, I'm done. I'm out. Count me out. Yeah.
So did you go away to college? And if you did you play out there wherever you went?
Yeah, I went to Central Washington University in Ellensburg. So when I say I went away to college, I mean like it was like an hour and a half away. But my closest branch at that time was Volkenfeld. And that was still about a 45-minute drive away. But I did go every week down to hang out with Volkenfeld. They were a shire at that time. And I got to help out with their baronial transition. And that was really interesting and really fun. There's something really exciting about a branch taking on a new mantle like that. And so when I went to Volkenfeld and got to experience that process, I felt like I had a pretty good handle on what that should look like when Wywood decided to go from Shire to Barony. So I got to be part of that process as well. And that was really cool. So as Seneschal, also I got to be involved with helping Glendoofin migrate from their Shire status to Barony. And so I'm like, I feel like this old hat now. I get it. I know what the process is. You guys are going to get this. It's going to be fine. But I really enjoyed being a college student and being in the SCA, although I was acutely aware that my SCA college experience was not the same as other people's SCA college experience. But I don't think it had really like kind of come home in my head as much as when after college I went to go live in upstate New York for 2 years. And I lived in the barony of Thescor in the kingdom of Ethelmark. And it was actually really funny. I get there and it's my very first baronial business meeting. And the local herald, who I'd never met before, he's like, "Oh, I know your mom." And I'm like, "What does she do? Like send a letter ahead of time? Like what is happening?" And he's like, "I want to step down as herald. Do you want to be the baronial herald?" I'm like, it's really, it's despite what I said earlier, it's not hereditary. I don't know anything about heraldry. But because I want to be a participator, I'm like, "Sure, I'll be your baronial herald in this kingdom. I don't know how anything works here. I don't know how to conflict check anything, but you got it." So like and also in Ethelmark at that time anyway, I don't know if that's still the case, but the crown was coming to an event like a month after I became the baronial herald. And the crown's head retainer had reached out to me to let me know the crown was coming and that I was going to be heralding royal court. And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Like I've done this a couple times on tier. I got this, no big deal." Except they don't tell you because you don't think to ask that they don't say the same things we do. Like, so I'm trying to say like, "Pray attend." And they're looking at me like I have an eyeball growing out of the middle of my head because they say, "Oh, yay." Lots of small differences that made it very clear that she is not from here.
Do they say huzzah?
No, I don't think so. I think they were Hooray Kingdom, as I recall.
Hooray King?
I think Vivat. I think they're a Vivat Kingdom. Yeah, that was also another fun one that I'm like, okay, apparently we're gonna roll with it. It's fine. Also, the king and queen, right when I first moved there, happened to live in my barony. And so there's a newcomer night. And I was like, "Oh, this will be great. I'm not really new to the SCA, but I'm new to this kingdom and I'm new to this barony. I'm going to go to this newcomer night." And it was at someone's home. I want to say it was the local baronial seneschal's home. And the crown was there, which was a little weird because I'm sitting in this car. They're like, "Oh, how did you find the SCA?" I'm like, "Well, I mean, I didn't, but I'm here anyway." So, and that was an interesting experience because I feel like their shadowing didn't really know what to do with me. They're like, "Oh, you're like a transplant, so I don't really know what to teach you. I guess have fun, I suppose." But it was a good experience. I really enjoyed my time in Ethelmark. I got to try new things I had never tried non tier. Like I got really interested in rattan combat. And so I was like, "Dad, you need to send me armor." And he's like, "Okay." So he like mails me a bunch of armor. And I show up at fight practice. I got this helm that's too big and I got this like taped up shield, but I'm like, I'm here and I'm ready and I'm brand new. And it was so much fun. As a principal kingdom in Penzic, they have a really strong war culture there. And so the first half of every fight practice was like sparring and practice. And the second half was war drills. And I was like, "You do not need to be a great fighter to participate in war drills." And they'd be like, "Okay," they'd have these, these commands and the war. And also every barony was kind of expected to have a war band. And so the baronial war band person would have us practice drills. And except for I was really bad at things. So he's like, "Your other left on tier," and like throw duct tape at me. And I'm like, "Oh, right, sorry." It was really fun. And I think it was a really good way to get to be part of the fighting community and not necessarily be good at sparring right away because you got to feel like you were part of a team. And that was really fun.
That's cool. Yeah. I remember you fought quite a bit in Wywood for a while.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think my issue, an issue maybe isn't the right word. I think that I had more fun in Ethelmark because I feel like the calibration was different in Ethelmark. Whereas when I started fighting in Ontier, I was like, "Oh, this hurts a lot." And the amount of pain to the amount of fun was not leveling out for me. And I was like, "You know what? There's a lot of other components of the SCA that I can explore that don't require me like coming home covered in bruises." So
I get that.
Yeah. But I'm really impressed with the number of like female fighters that are out there right now. I feel like that wasn't necessarily my experience, certainly not in Ethelmark, and a decade or more ago was not really my experience in tier either. So it's really cool to see the number of people that are like, "Yeah," especially I will give them mad props because on tier, like, that is not easy.
Right. Yeah.
We have a pretty deep fighting pool here. So
we really do.
Yeah.
We do. Yeah.
True facts. And I when I was putting pictures together, I uploaded some of your art and for some reason they didn't get translated, but you do, I think they're cross stitch pouches.
Yeah, so they're very similar to cross stitch. They're brick stitch,
Okay,
and
brick
so it's another counted embroidery technique, which for my type A personality works phenomenally. I'm like, yes, you mean that if I just count the number of like cross threads, it's going to turn out the way I want it to? Yes, please. And I think for me, at least, it was a really nice way to introduce a new art form because it felt very prescribed. And so now when I'm doing embroidery that is a little bit more free form, I just have a lot more confidence in it. So really big fan. Brick stitch is a lot of fun. And also it's meant to be it's meant to cover an entire piece. So at the end of it, you're like, ooh, that looks fancy.
Well, they look great. I remember you donated one for a tournament we had at Ontario West, and it was amazing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I have a couple that I think are works in progress that are at least a couple years old now. And someday I'm going to get around to finishing them. But lately I've been really into like more applique work and more freeform embroidery. I'm working on some horse barding right now, which is a really also a very fun like thing that's kind of stretching my mind a little bit. Like this isn't even making like clothes for a person. This is making clothes for a pony. And so that's been really fun to work with leather and to incorporate felt and incorporate like metal components and also some embroidery and applique. So that's been a really fun project. I haven't worked on it as much as I should because seneschal takes up a lot of my time. But
and that's a huge, I mean, you're going from a pouch to a big thing.
Yeah, just go big or home, right?
Yeah, that's a huge scale difference. That's awesome.
Yeah. I've been really intrigued though. Like every time that Rick and you post like all of your stamping stuff, I'm like, that is incredible. All I want to do, by the way, is just sew tons of pearls all over everything that you've ever posted. Where I'm like, oh my God, I just want to bead the crap out of this thing. So amazing.
You know, the thing about stamping is that, and I'm not bagging on anyone that stamping is their thing because I love it, but it's not a ton of work, and you get this gorgeous thing at the end that in the textile has so much more depth and character. That it's super rewarding for me to just like say, oh, I'm gonna stamp these pants. You know, and it takes, you know, it's still time consuming, but it's not time consuming like embroidery or applique is. And you still
and the effect is incredible. It's really good. It makes me almost want to switch personas so I can have like a really stamped fun outfit.
Just make a stamped fun outfit.
You know what? You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. What's stopping me? Nothing.
You can have like a night where, you know, I don't know, some party where you wear stamped outfits and.
Oh my God. Should we have a stamp party? I think we should. Yeah. Stamped outfits all night long. We'll do a fashion show. It'll be great. I love it.
Let's do it at Sport of Kings on my nacho night.
Perfect. I'm writing it down. It's happening.
It's not period at all. It's just fun.
Yeah. And the best things that I've ever done in the SCA have been just for fun, right? Just because it was on a whim and it sounded like a lot of fun. Like my sister and I decided to do this Cabana Boy decathlon because we're like,
I love that.
And I think that there's a lot of people who have this idea that you have to ask a lot of permission to do things. Here's my tip to anyone who is interested in doing something fun: just do it. No one's going to stop you unless it like actually breaks the rule. But if you want to have a Cabana Boy decathlon, go.
I remember that. It was like at a September Crown, right?
Yeah. And the funny thing is that it got way bigger than I think we ever intended it to. I think we thought we'd have maybe 3 or 4 people participate, and we were going to have it in the Whitewood like pavilion. And I think the queen, because it was Gwyneth at the time, and she found out, it was like, oh, we should have it in the Royal Pavilion. We'll have it right after the Ladies of the Rose meeting, and it'll be fantastic. And the next thing we got 10 people who want to do this ridiculous obstacle course that we've created for them.
It was very fun to watch.
Yeah, because sometimes you have to make your own fun.
Right. So talk about this obstacle course, because I was watching from the distance and we were laughing, but I didn't really understand what was going on.
So there were 10 different challenges, and I'm I would lie to you if I could tell you I remembered all 10 challenges were, but there was like there was a cocktail making component because we were like, okay, well, if you were going to be a command boy, like what activity should you be well versed in, right? We're like, okay, well, you should be able to amuse people. So there should be a talent portion. There should be a cocktail making portion. An extra credit went to people who remembered that Gwyneth was pregnant at the time and made her like a virgin cocktail. What else? We did decorative plating. Like you have Ritz crackers, you have some salami, and you have like a little box of raisins. Make it pretty. But the obstacle course wasn't so much an obstacle course as we kind of waited until there was a lot of debris just littered around the Erics, and we're like, just run around the Erics, take your cocktail, take your decorative plate, and run around the Eric.
There was some like catwalk kind of thing element as well,
and that got really out of hand. I was like, wow, I was not expecting. Who I think it was Kai's like painted. He went to the Scribble tent, had them paint him a 6-pack, and I was like, okay, all right, that's a look. Viscount Sethric, who was not a Viscount at that time, I don't think he was a knight at that time, he showed up wearing nothing but a ruffled veil around his waist, and we're like, this has taken a very sexy turn.
Yes.
That we were not anticipating at all.
Cabana boy, right?
Yeah.
I like that the guys took it there though. Like it wasn't a requirement.
No, that was all on them. That was a choice they made.
That's funny. I love that though. Like you don't need permission. Just decide that you want to do something fun and like get some enthusiasm, and people will want to participate.
Yeah. And if they don't, like, I mean, you're not really out anything. As long as you had fun,
right?
By all means. I decided, what was it, last summer? I was like, I feel like making flower crowns. So like, me and a couple of friends were just hanging out in the Madrona Pavilion making flower crowns. And there were a bunch of people that came over to like want to participate, and that was fine too. But at the end of the day, I can't be upset. I have a flower crown. So aces on me. That's great.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that as a lot of us are reflecting on what the SCA means to us, I'm watching a lot of people put up old pictures on Facebook. And this week, some of the guys from the West put some pictures up of them playing Hurley after fighting. And that used to be a huge thing. And it was so much fun, you know, and there was no permission asked. It was just everybody bring your Hurley sticks and get out on the fight field. And I think they stopped doing that because they sort of aged out and injuries became too impactful.
As can happen for sure. Yeah. I'm also like, likewise with the Cabana Boy Decathlon, I'm like, I'm not sure that the climate of objectifying people in this way is really where we want to go again. Right. It might have been a thing of its time and maybe now it's over. I don't know. But I agree. Like to a certain extent, you just go have a good time, and it doesn't always need to be a fully like organized and sponsored activity. It can just be a thing.
Yeah. Don't wait for people to entertain you. Make your own fun.
Yeah. Also, I feel like the more people that do that decide to have a one-off, it doesn't even have to be an annual thing. It could be a one-off party or a one-off activity that you decide to do. It makes that event more memorable. I can't tell you how many September crowns I can't really remember because they feel so rote after a period of time. Mm-hmm. But I'll always remember the September crown that we had the Cabana Boy Decathlon because it sticks out.
And the Dirty Pirate Hooker Party.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I didn't even participate in that, and I remember that.
Yeah.
I only heard about it later, but I was like, that, to be fair, that does sound fun.
There were men in mass hiding from the herd of women.
Yeah, or like, who was it? I think Mary Grace and Charles did a like ladies night out scavenger hunt a couple years ago. I was like, that's very fun. More of that. Yeah. More spontaneous whimsy.
I like that.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Got something, Misty? Rifkin?
Sure. I want to know, in addition to your embroidery, what other kind of arts things are you doing? And are you making all your own clothes now?
I am making all my own clothes now, though I'm not going to pretend like I've made anything new in a little while. I think like a lot of people, the removal of the in-person SCA experience over the last couple of months has been, it's been a little hard for me to get super excited about artsy things. And also there's a certain amount of guilt. Do you remember in college, like every time you read a book for fun, you felt a little guilty because you weren't reading your textbook? I feel that way with my SCA time, right? Where like if I sit down to work on an arts project, that's time that I'm not reading like an officer handbook that I need to proofread for my seneschal job. And so I feel sort of a guilt associated with it.
Goodbye.
And so for that reason, I'm not doing a ton. However, I recently signed up for, I think it's the 3rd round of Master Charles' fur class. And that has been a blast. We just had our last class last Sunday. And so I'm making a fur-lined hood. And it's fabulous. And I'm very excited about it. In the way that a mink-lined hood can only make you feel very fancy.
I totally wanted to take that class, but I had so much on my plate with doing these and the Duke things that I just couldn't fit it in.
And I think that he's probably going to continue doing them for a long, because there's so much interest, right? Also, there's a ton of people who've taken the class now, and he's been giving a lot of people permission to like go forth and proselytize the word of fur. So I think there'll be lots of opportunities to do the things.
Fur is really daunting, I think. I mean, you know, it gets caught in the seam and it's thick and it's hard.
Yeah.
So I'm sure he teaches all the tricks.
Yeah, I think that going through the class and having him show you exactly how to avoid those things, it felt very empowering, where I'm like, oh, I can work with fur. And what's more, I should. This is very fun. In the way that like, when you've never worked with like nice materials before, the first time you do like, ooh, yes, please. Like I never want to do hand sewing without silk thread ever again, because I'm like, it's just so wonderful. And I feel that way with fur now, where I'm like, oh, I just feel so dang fancy working with this. So one thing that I've learned from that class, though, is how forgiving fur actually is. Like, I didn't realize that even if you have a tiny hole in your pelt, you can't see it. And I was like, or like if the seam separates just a little bit and makes a little bit of a gap, you can't see it. So I found that really encouraging.
Yeah. It's sort of empowering. It's like, it doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah, it's fine. Also, the only thing that people are going to see is like, ooh, that's some dang fancy fur. They're never going to see anything wrong with it.
They're never going to see the back of it because it's all fully lined.
Yeah, it's great. It's so good. And because sometimes I'm just a little extra. So I decided that after I put together my hood and I put together the fashion fabric, I'm like, you know what this needs? It needs embroidery, and it also needs bedazzling. So now I'm on that component of it. But as soon as I'm done, I'll post lots of pictures because I'm very excited.
Are you using a real bedazzler?
No, but I am putting in a massive pewter order, and I'm going to be sewing on lots of pewter.
Awesome.
Maybe. Actually, I take that back. I might be going with pewter, and I might be going with beads. Haven't decided yet. The world's my oyster.
Fabulous. I own a bedazzler and have bedazzled my husband's fighting pants in the buttocks area.
Excellent.
So
I love it.
Whimsy.
Because things are better when they're sparkly.
So something that you have done, you and your sister have done a podcast, and you have also helped Morgan Donner with her I don't know, video blog, her YouTube.
Oh yeah, her YouTube channel. Yeah.
Even before we were in this time where we couldn't be together, can you talk to me a little bit about like your inspiration for doing that kind of stuff?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, the inspiration for helping Morgan Donner is Morgan Donner asked me, and I cannot look that woman in the eye and tell her no. She's just so earnest and so sweet, and has been immeasurably helpful with my project. So when she's like, will you come and do a thing with me? I'm like, yeah, of course, naturally.
I have to tell you, her little tutorial about how to put in a gusset when not like have the all mess up. Love it.
yeah,
Love it.
She is so wonderful. And in fact, like she and I went to costume college together last year down in Los Angeles. And I went there to go take some classes. I didn't realize that I would also be Morgan Donner's entourage. She's so famous.
Oh, I didn't know.
Historical costumers in that world. I'm like, oh man. There were people like, can I take a picture with Morgan Donner? I'm like, yeah, I guess I'll hold your stuff while you take a picture. That's fine. No, she's phenomenal. She actually just crossed, I think, 100,000 subscribers.
Wow.
That's fantastic.
She's awesome. It's actually kind of unnerving. When I went to Gulf Wars a couple years ago, someone recognized me from one of those videos. I'm like, I don't know.
Yes, it's me.
Tangentially famous. Morgan. All right. The funny thing about doing a podcast is that people do not recognize your face from a podcast at all. But I've really enjoyed doing that with my sister. That was born out of I think it was a desire to have more of a reason to sit down and just chat with my sister. Honestly, she's probably my favorite person in the whole world. But now that she has a baby, like it's kind of a close call. She's very funny. She's very fun. I love just sitting down and talking to her, and having a scheduled time where we get to sit down and do that feels very good. And I think we've always kind of come at it from the perspective of, I don't really care if anyone else ever listens to this. This is fantastic. So
yeah. I think that, well, I can't speak for my sister, but I think the same has been very true for us. And it's been a huge gift to our relationship, and just having something to look forward to.
Yeah.
Every
I think that there's never been a time, and I'm like, I don't want to make it sound like, things are hunky dory right now or anything, but I do think that being at home more has made it possible for us to explore ways that we can connect with people in a different way. And I also think that there's never been a better time to try it, right? You can make a podcast with someone and never publish it. So if you have an interest in doing something like that, go forth and try it. The physical material cost is very low. If you have like a cell phone that you can record into, if you can do like a Zoom meeting, you can have a YouTube video that you can do as much editing as you want to, and it can just be for yourself. So I've been very encouraging of other people to use this opportunity as an experiential time, like go forth and experiment, try new things. Maybe you'll find that you absolutely love being a podcaster. I've been toying around with the idea of having making a cooking YouTube channel where you just cook with me, because I make a mess, but I may go ahead and do a couple episodes and they're just for me and they never get published. Who knows?
I'd come cook with you.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, on camera. Not in person right now.
Or everywhere.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, my husband laughs at me because he's like, I don't understand how you can cook such a simple dish and manage to dirty 1,000 dishes. I'm like, I know, it's a gift. I don't know either. It's like a personal best.
I know when my husband has been in the kitchen, because every knife in the kitchen will be dirty. Every single knife. And that's like, I think you chopped 2 things. Why are 8 knives dirty? I don't understand.
The kitchen gods, they demand sacrifice, I suppose. Also, I feel very fortunate because before I moved to my current house, I was living on a house in Beacon Hill in Seattle, and I did not have a dishwasher. And I will never take having a dishwasher for granted ever again. So now I don't have to feel guilty about dirtying 1,000 dishes because the nice robot will clean it for me. What would we do without our household robots? I don't know.
So let's talk about Seneschal a little bit. What's your favorite part of being Seneschal?
Oh man, my favorite part is probably facilitating projects. There are a lot of people who have passion projects that they want to get done. And my absolute favorite part is saying, yes, we should do that. And what's more, I'm going to help you make that happen. And they can be small projects. Like, I kind of want to change the way we do this process. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Let's go ahead and change it. Or they can be much bigger projects like Lindoofen's like, we kind of want to be a barony now. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Let's make it happen. So that's probably my favorite part, is saying yes. There's a lot of opportunity to say no. So anytime you get to say yes, it feels really good.
Awesome.
What's the hardest part?
Yeah, what's been the biggest challenge?
I think that the hardest part has especially, it's a really good question. There's a lot of parts. Some of them are hard but enjoyable, and some of them are hard and less enjoyable. But I think that the hardest part, truthfully, has been since March and shutting things down, has been the uncertainty of how to we're like in the wild west of the SCA right now. And I feel like there's a lot of expectation that that there's a plan. And I don't want to tell people that there's not a plan, but in a lot of like, we're kind of making the plan as we can. And a lot of responsiveness as opposed to like actually planning out and rolling out stuff on like a more.
How can you make a plan for this organization when our government doesn't have a plan and the virus doesn't have a plan and there's nothing, I mean, it's all uncertain. There's no way to plan for that.
Yeah, and I think also it's managing expectations, and there's always going to be people that are going to want things that you can't give to them. And in those situations, you're going to have people that are supremely unhappy. And sometimes that's a little hard. I don't think I've ever been in a situation before where so many people were very unhappy with decisions that I've made. And I'm like, oh man, I feel like such a bad guy right now. In that, like, there's only so much you can do with the information that you have available. I'm actually really grateful that the Crown has been amazing partners throughout all this. In some respects, I can appreciate from their part how challenging it must be, because as hard as it is to do all the back end administrative stuff, they have to be the face of all this. And when you don't have a lot of information to share because it's simply not available, that can be really hard. Also, they were expecting when they won Crown in September to be done in July. And now they're kind of in this infinite, like, we don't know when they're going to be able to pass on their crowns. And I have to admit, like, that would take a toll on anyone. And they've been doing a really stellar job. I've had there's been a lot of opportunity during this time without events, especially over the busy summer that we usually have events going on all the time. And without those, it's been a lot of opportunity for people to do things like go through fighting handbooks or going through officer handbooks and making all these changes. And all of that has to be reviewed. And the Crown, to their credit, they read everything. They read every single change. They make a lot of comments on, how they think things should work. They're also in a really unique position right now. We've never had a reign that's been longer than 6 months. And so for that reason, there's these really big overarching, I don't want to call them problems, but there are ways that we could be doing things better. But because the continuity of the Crown is only 6 months, it makes it really challenging to make a plan and fully execute that plan before the Crown changes over. Whereas in this situation, we're able to really start tackling some of these really big jobs that probably are a little overdue. But now that we have a Crown that's going to be in place for a long time and are committed to the plan and committed to the vision, we're able to make some pretty big changes. And I'm pretty excited about that. They've also just been extremely understanding with me and that, like, every now and again they'll come to me with a question about, like, how are we supposed to move forward with this? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I think we get to choose. How would your majesties like to do this? Because it's the Wild West, right? Yeah, I feel like there was a lot of vitriol, especially early in the pandemic, that was directed to the board of directors about, like, there's no leadership. And I have to admit, I had some frustration as well, but having some distance and perspective has led me to, like, realize that they're also just 7 humans trying to figure it out. And because I think that prior to that, all 20 kingdoms were feeling a little lost. Like, there was a lot of like, we don't know what to do either. You guys go figure it out, whatever works best for your kingdom. We're like, okay. And now that we've had a couple months, we're all getting a little bit more understanding about how this really should work, what things could be doing better. Like, for example, we still had to continue having Curia meetings, but we got some feedback being like, people want to participate, or at the very least, they want to be able to watch Kingdom Curia. So the Kingdom Web Minister came up with this Microsoft Teams Live solution that allowed people at least to log in and watch the Curia meeting to add some transparency and give people that feeling of connection to decisions that are being made. So I feel like we're constantly in the state of reiteration and how we can make things better, how we can make people feel more connected.
When you do those Curia meetings, where do they get publicized?
On the Kingdom website. There's an online events calendar in addition to the events calendar. And then also the social media deputy has been pushing it to our Kingdom officials Facebook page.
Okay.
Cool. But it's been a really interesting time. I've never would have imagined how much overlap the Seneschal's office and the web minister's office would have had. But I feel like I'm talking to the Kingdom web minister multiple times a week on projects and trying to get stuff transitioned to online. In particular, she and I have been working on a really large project to implement an online baronial polling process that truthfully we could have done 10 years ago, but it's been up until now that we're like, okay, well, this is the impetus. Like, we need to get it done now. And Duke Ulf has been tremendously supportive during that process and trying to get it off the ground. He has a very funny story, by the way, of his mail carrier giving him a stack of envelopes to the king. It's very funny. Yeah, and so that's a really fun project that we get to work on together that probably wouldn't have happened if we would have had events all this whole summer. So also, I don't think that the Kingdom Arts and Sciences Minister has ever been more busy in like keeping track of all the amazing art stuff that's happening online right now.
Yeah.
I feel bad for the Earl Marshal. I feel like poor Althea is like, I don't know, fielding lots of questions, I guess. I don't think she's been as busy in this time.
But there's opportunities there too. She could do a revamp your kit and, let's go through your kit and like have different weeks. Like week 1, we're going to look at legs and how to, knees and blah, 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 or whatever. I mean, there's opportunities there as well.
Yeah, I feel like every conceivable thing that you do in the SCA could, with enough creativity, could be translated into an online experience. But I also think that we're starting to see some fatigue associated with the number of online things that are happening. So every time we have a conversation about, for example, 12th night, right? 12th night's not happening. And in a in-person physical setting, we're like, okay, well, what could an online 12th night look like? And what does that mean? And what do people want? And how much investment of volunteer hours and money do we want to put into something if we're unsure about the rate of return on that investment? Especially because, like any volunteer organization, the true currency that we use is volunteer hours to pay for things. And there's a finite number of those. And so how we go about allocating things to different projects is really important. And we want to make sure that we're using our money wisely. We don't really know how our events are going to, work out going forward. Luckily, the Kingdom has fantastic reserves. So we're not in any danger or anything, but big projects also come with big price tags, and we have to prioritize those things. So
I find all that very fascinating.
Yeah. Anytime you want, we can sit down and talk all about SCA finances if you want.
Oh, no, I don't want to talk about finances. No. No. I like more about how you and the Crown and the other officers are using this time to bolster the infrastructure, like soft or hard, to make things better. I think that's great.
Yeah, and it's a lot of fun. And it's too bad that so much of it is invisible. That all these things are being done in the back end to truly make things more efficient or easier, is largely invisible to the general populace, but is also necessary and in the long term really productive and useful. For example, we have a storage unit full, those waivers that you sign when you come to gate? We have a storage locker full of them, full floor to ceiling, wall to wall, full of paper waivers. And so we're in the process now of migrating those into a digital imaging service and truly going to a digital waiver retention process where instead of having to take those waivers from your event or from your fight practice or from your archery practice, whatever, and mail them to someone to then take to a storage unit and put in there, you can email them and they'll be stored digitally.
What is our retention policy like?
It's 7 years for adult waivers and 20 years for minor waivers.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Wow.
But I can tell you, if the Society Seneschal called me tomorrow and said, I need a waiver from 6 years ago, I don't want to drive to that storage locker and sift through all that paper.
Yeah,
So,
it definitely gets scanned. And
yeah. So even though a project like that doesn't necessarily translate into a big difference for an average, SCA event attendee, it means the world of difference in terms of being able to administer things.
Exactly. Very cool.
Yeah. There's so many projects like that. So many.
I think it's important that people understand that that kind of stuff is going on, you know, because to most people who don't, I think a majority of people who play in the SCA don't have any idea what goes on in the background, what is holding up the game, you know, what holds up all of these events that we have and the crown. They just don't know. And I think it's really great to talk about that. Thank you.
Yeah. Maybe I should be better about like writing a like, here's what's happening in the kingdom, like just posting it or something, like updates on projects.
Like Seneschal's Corner on the website. Like here's all the cool like administrative projects we're doing.
Yeah, your volunteer hours at work.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really great idea. I should probably try. At the very least, I'll add to you now. Like, hey, this is a really good idea. You should do this.
Yeah, she's watching, so.
Yeah. There's a project for you, Atia.
Yeah, that's exactly what she needs is another project. I'm sure she's rolling her eyes like.
No, but I do think that transparency is huge.
Mm-hmm.
Not because people are suspect, but just because people, when they don't know, they don't know. They just have no idea. And so it's sort of like this ignorant blanket, right? Where you're like, I don't understand what's going on. Like, how can there possibly be anything for them to do? We're not having any events. And well, there's all this stuff to do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. The business of running the kingdom surprisingly doesn't stop even when events aren't happening. And it changes in a different way. Instead of having a lot more oversight on kingdom events and making sure that the royal succession is happening and all those other things that are usually part of the seneschal's job. Now it's things like, how do we make sure that branches are getting the resources they need to continue operating? How are we going to structure our finances such that if a branch has financial trouble because it can't hold events, how are we going to be able to respond to that? What process do we need to build out so branches can request assistance? And even other like things that were like, oh, this is clearly broken, but it's not something that the kingdom gets to dictate, something the society gets to dictate. So now there's more collaboration than ever amongst the kingdom seneschals of the known world to say, you know what, this is broken, it's not working, we're going to come up with a proposal and give it to the appropriate society officer to say, like, this clearly needs to be addressed. And it kind of goes back to that volunteer hours thing. If you make a process too cumbersome and complicated, then volunteers simply won't do it. And then at which point, why are we asking them to? If no one's doing it, then why is this a rule? And so that's been really exciting too. And I was talking with my predecessor, Viscountess Lenora, who's also just the bee's knees and amazing. And she was saying that, she didn't have nearly as much collaboration with other kingdom seneschals because there hasn't been as great of a need to share what we're doing. What are you guys doing? How are you responding to this? It's been really exciting and interesting to get a glimpse behind how other kingdoms work. I'm like, oh, you are very different than Antir.
Do you guys have a Seneschal's Facebook page that you?
Yeah, we do. We have a Kingdom Seneschal Facebook page that we use. We also have some private chat channels going on for various projects. We also have a new society seneschal who is really awesome about communication and talking to us and asking for feedback. And because I think that there's a realization that kingdom seneschals are kind of the boots on the ground for a lot of the corporate stuff. Like, you can roll out these policies, but you know who's going to be able to tell you whether or not they're going to work is the kingdom seneschal. Are going to say, no, this is never going to work for these reasons, and here's how we'd recommend fixing them. And I want to say the crowns of the known world are much more collaborative as well. The reason why in North America that we're not having any SCA events until the end of January is because the crowns of the known world were like, you're stretching our volunteer hours to the point of breaking with having to plan for events that we know are going to be canceled. And it's a heart-wrenching process to have to tell someone who's put in 100 hours of work planning an event that it's not going to happen. And even worse, when you knew 3 weeks ago that it wasn't going to happen and you let them continue working on it. So the fact that they got together and wrote this whole petition and submitted it to the board and that they listened was A+, fantastic. More of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you stolen any ideas from any other kingdoms yet?
Oh, that's a good question. Yes. In that Yes, but I can't really talk too much because it's still kind of being kind of thought process. I've been talking to some other kingdoms about their processes regarding how do we. None of this is sexy, by the way. It's not the sexiest job in the kingdom, but it's all about like how we process vendor payments for events and how we can streamline this process better. So I'm working with a couple other kingdom seneschals on that project, but also reimagining things in the way they are and how we can make it better. For example, Master Renard started doing this project with the online scroll database, right? With these beautiful original scrolls that people take into their home we never see again, and having them online. And then there was a big question about like, how do we deal with the release forms associated with the artwork? Who owns the image of the scroll? Is it the person who took the photo, or is it the artist who created the scroll? And do we even need a release form? Like it's a whole thing. And so being able to have conversations with other Kingdom Seneschals who are like, right, we have the same problem and this is how we resolve it, has been interesting. Some of those resolutions don't necessarily jive with like our society officers' expectations, but we're making it work, making it happen.
That is difficult with all those release forms.
And it's another example of like you made this really challenging, complicated process and expected volunteers to adhere to it.
Right, because all you really want to do is make this cool online database where people can look at this really cool artwork that nobody gets to see, because that's a really cool idea.
Yeah. And I want to be able to say yes to all these things. So I'm like, yeah, we'll go ahead and do it. We'll figure the back end stuff out later.
Right.
Or yes. I like to tell the branch seneschals that I think of them as the facilitators of fun. Like you guys are the ones that make it so that we can have activities, we can have events. And a lot of it's like the stuff that people don't see. Like you're the ones who make sure that we have things like a storage unit to hold our stuff. But that's necessary, and it's what facilitates the fun later.
Right.
So
right.
That's my ridiculous plug to be like, volunteer to be seneschals. It's a cool job.
It's your big recruitment speech.
Yeah. I think plug for the seneschal's office.
You should change the title to fun facilitator. I think that would be a much
oh my gosh
better job.
Yes.
You want to be the fun facilitator?
Yeah.
Yes, I do. Sign me up.
100%.
Yeah. You gotta do things like plan for storage units and like meetings and stuff. But you know what? They can be fun meetings. Everyone wear a stamped tunic.
Yes. And we have nachos. Oh God. Okay.
Why not make it fun?
No, but I do really appreciate you being so transparent with some of the things that are going on, because I honestly had no idea that all these different things were getting revamped, and I think it's super cool. I mean, it's not sexy, but it's cool, right?
I think it's kind of sexy. I think it's
You do?
I do, because it's a lot of people putting a lot of their time and passion into fixing things to make them go. And I have a deep appreciation for that. So yeah, I think it's kind of sexy.
Work. Being able to look back and say like, whoa, we got all these things done, even though people can't always see them. Very exciting, very good stuff. I'm very much looking forward to the idea of not having to give Atty any filing cabinets, because I've been like slowly digitizing everything. I do think though, if I had to say what the sexiest office is right now, I think it's the Kingdom Web Minister. Or maybe Kingdom Social Media Deputy, because they are doing all like the front line splashy fun stuff right now. It's very fun. Also, if anyone wants to help out, the Kingdom Web Minister is always looking for people to be on the web staff. Shameless plug.
What talents do you need for that?
Oh, that's a really good question. I don't know, actually. I'll have to ask Alicia and get back to you. I imagine some like web support stuff, but I don't really know what. I'm not a web person. I can barely turn on my computer. So
same.
Yeah, I'm not the person for that. I'll happily tell other people that she's looking for help.
I don't have the technical skills.
Nope, me either. I can make things pretty with fabric, but yeah, that's about it.
I can stamp them.
That would be amazing. Random stamps on websites, like, all right. So Rifkin's been here clearly.
Done thing.
I'm a dork.
Well, Do you have anything else that you want to talk about that you'd like
I
to
don't
share?
think so. I mean, like, it feels very self-indulgent. I spent the last like hour and 20 minutes just talking about myself. So
That's why we're here.
but I feel like you guys know everything about me. There's nothing else to know.
What's your favorite thing about your parents' farm?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think Shanti, their beautiful barn cat.
Oh,
I don't know if you've seen the picture. She is for being a barn cat, I imagine that she was going to be kind of rough and scraggly and maybe like missing a tooth or something. She's the most, she's got these big blue eyes. She kind of has like a Siamese markings, but long, luxurious fur. Like she's very much like the welcome cat to the farm. Oh, love her. She's so cute. So cute.
over baby goats.
Oh, the baby goats are also very cute. But there's no baby goats right now. There's no more baby goats until, I think she said it's like springtime, like March maybe, we're going to get more baby goats.
Yeah.
Which we're very excited about because the grandbaby is going to have so many pictures taken with baby goats, and my mom can't even.
That will be fun.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking forward to that.
We'll have to make a little saddle.
No.
Perfect.
You should make some goat barding.
Oh my gosh, yes. I think I have enough like spare materials to make that happen.
You could stamp it.
No, I have a question for you. Are you making the horse barding for like the Grand Prix? Do you ride, or are you making it for someone else?
Oh no, actually, sorry, I didn't even talk about that. The horse barding I'm making right now. So I made 2 saddle blankets. Okay, backing up. I've gone to Gulf Wars several times now, and it makes me sad that when the Crown of Ontario goes to Gulf Wars to do the equestrian processional, we don't have fancy barding for the kingdom. Every other kingdom has like these giant things for their ponies and like flags and all kinds of cool stuff. And we have to borrow the kingdom equestrian champion's cloak and kind of tuck it under the saddle on the king's horse so it kind of looks like Ontario is here. And so I made like some checky saddle blankets so that the crown could at least have some saddle blankets. And I'm applying some laurel wreaths on the kings and some roses on the queen, so we'll make it a little spiffier. And then right now what I'm working on is, and I say working on, I haven't touched it in a month or two, but they're false reins that have like that spear shape, the Ontario crown spear shape, with black leather and gold felting to kind of fimbriate it. And I'm actually trying to figure out how I want to make it fancier to kind of emulate how the crown of Ontario has the gems that are kind of between the things. So I'm trying to figure out a way to how to emulate that in the chest band that goes across the front of the horsey, and also the false reins.
I have ideas.
Oh, I will send you some pictures of what I have currently because I would love some ideas.
Okay.
Yay! And then yeah, so hopefully they'll just be kingdom horsey barding that we can use whenever the crown is going to process on ponies.
Does Ontario have a storage locker down there like we do at Penzic?
We don't. Duchess Mary Grace has a storage unit that she's been very generous about letting people use. But we don't have a storage unit. We talked about potentially maybe decommissioning one of the trailers in the kingdom and leaving it at the Gulf War site to be a storage unit. I think a lot of that is dependent on Ontario's continued increase in attendance at Gulf Wars. The first year I went, there were 7 people from Ontario total. But I feel like last couple of years, we've been at over 50 people. So if Ontario continues to have a much bigger draw, then it makes more sense for us to be able to divert kingdom resources to facilitate that. Yeah, it kind of depends, because what it does is it puts the crown that reign to decide, like, do you want to go to Gulf Wars or do you want to go to Estrella? And that sometimes I think for the crown can be a hard decision to make. It's not a hard decision for me to make. Like, Gulf Wars has ponies, so
horses always win.
Mm-hmm. Also, they have cabins. It's very easy to go to Gulf Wars. Shameless plug for Gulf Wars. If you haven't been, you should go. You can fly into New Orleans, you rent a car, you drive there, you check into your cabin, you get dressed, and you're at the event. No tents to put up. It's perfect.
Nice. Yeah, and there's showers in the cabins?
What's that?
Showers in the cabins?
Some of them, yes, the fancy ones that they give to the royals. That's another pro tip from Alianora. If you're going to go to Gulf Wars, be on a royal retinue, because then you get in the cabins with the showers. Pro tip.
Good to know. Good to know.
Mm-hmm.
I have the Artemisia hookup. I think our camp had showers that I was supposed to camp at this year that I didn't get to go to.
Was this going to be? Have you been to Gulf Wars before?
I've never been.
This is going to be your first one.
Yeah, I was really bummed because I had like bought a first class ticket.
Oh.
Yeah, it was a bummer. I like to fly first class back from a war because I'm so sore from fighting like days and days and days in a row that if I have to like, put my boobs in, like coach, like I come out of the plane in Seattle and I'm like just like one big huge stress ball. So
yeah, no, that's fair. Also, like, I mean, it's not a short flight, so might as well be comfortable, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. It's probably the best event in the known world. In that, like, so if you've been to Pennsic is kind of its own thing, right? In that, like, there are people at Pennsic who are not aware what the SCA is. They just go to Pennsic. And for that reason, I feel like Pennsic isn't truly representative of most people's SCA experience. Whereas Gulf Wars is kind of like that. It feels like an SCA event on a very big level. It has fantastic shopping. It has the war scenarios, which are very fun. It has the equestrian processional that's very fancy because you have like all these kingdoms marching in with their crowns, and like the Calontir army sings their songs, and they have the principal kingdoms like with all the banners and stuff, and it's very fancy. And then they have like these very fancy stylized tournaments where the royal house of Onstiora challenges the royal house of whatever, and they send their champions out and they fight, and all the ladies are like day drinking and waving. It's very fun. But they also have equestrian activities all week long, and they have hound coursing. What?
Wow.
Super fun.
Cool.
Cannot speak more highly of this event.
And I bet they have art stuff too.
Oh, they have like a whole artisan village. And additionally, they because of the way that the site is set up, some people have purchased space, like they own, like they have a separate parcel. The site owner has gone to the assessor's office and set aside a parcel that you can buy. So some people have permanent structures that they've built that they live in when they're at the war. There's a tavern. The Green Dragon is a tavern that's permanently built on site, and it has a fire pit in the middle and a musician's loft and a functional bar. It's very fun. But they also have I think it's called Early Period Life, where they've built like this like longhouse there that's fully functional and it's incredible. And they have classes and very fun. Mistress Yada runs a Italian salon at Gulf Wars, which is very cool. I feel like it's rapidly turned into Alianora's like
Pushing Gulf Wars.
Yeah.
I'm soaking it up though. I'm just like, so bummed I missed it. But anyway.
Next year, I believe it'll happen.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Well, I don't have anything else. Rifkin, do you have anything else?
I just like what are you gonna do after you step down as Kingdom Seneschal?
Going to Disneyland. Now, actually maybe I will. Probably not.
Probably not very busy.
Probably not. But I think I'm going to get super excited about artsy stuff. I think I'm going to lean in 100% on ramping up towards a Athenaeum bid. I think that I will kind of maintain some semblance of sanity because I'll still have to be Atia's like backup person for 6 months. So I have to be somewhat a responsible person. And other than that, kind of roll with, see kind of where things take us. I don't know. Cool. Learn how to be a pelican. I don't know.
You can tell me how to do that because I still don't feel like a very good pelican. So
we can have a bad pelicans club. We're like we don't know what we're doing. We're just kind of.
That's awesome.
No, I think you're a great pelican.
Well, we can talk sometime offline about what I think a good pelican should be and how I'm failing.
Deal.
All right. Well, thank you so much for agreeing to come on. I honestly I've found this super interesting, and I love how transparent you've been about like what the kingdom's doing and what the officers are doing and the volunteers. And makes me super excited actually
Yeah.
about having things go in the social direction too, where we can actually be together.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you guys so much for having me on. It's been a real honor to be amongst like your very fancy guests that you had. So thank you so much for thinking of me and inviting me to be on your show.
Well, we think you're very fancy.
And thank you everyone for joining us. Who are we talking to next week? Dawn, I am talking to, I think, Duke Hogarden on Sunday. So that'll be interesting. I think he is another Outlands dude. I could be wrong about that. Could be Palantir.
We're in October now.
Yes.
We've been doing this a really long time.
Yes.
It's kind of
cool.
cool.
The page.
So next week on the Branch of Laurels, I am interviewing Matthias Bain, which is super cool. He's Pelican, Laurel, Knight, Viscount.
He's the whole thing. The
Goose.
whole
package.
Yep.
Yeah, and plus he's just super fun and super cool. And then for the sisters interview, we're probably going to butcher this name. We're interviewing Duke Valharic. That guy.
We're interviewing Duke Valharic. He is a Laurel and a Duke and a Knight, and I've heard really great things. So
I've heard he's lots of fun, so that'll be super cool. And we have a really exciting October planned. Lots of interviews. We're booked out till the end of December. So
woohoo!
How did that happen?
Well, thank you again, and thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Good night. Thank
Bye.
you.
Good night.